Welcome back to Beyond the Nexus and our preview for the Fall Global Championship.
Last time we covered Korea, but this week we're going to look to the rest of the Heroes world.
Let's get to it. We're kicking off our fall preview with Europe. And per a cheeky Twitter announcement, Team Dignitas revealed that they'll be sticking with the same roster as summer.
And while this may be somewhat surprising, it is not surprising that My Insanity will be sticking together with their roster. As My Insanity themselves will tell you, they are very happy with how the players are meshing together.
The chemistry is very, very good. We all like each other. We are at the point where we all understand what we want to do in-game. So without even saying, we usually know the movement of our teammates, which I think is very important.
All our personalities match really well. And like we know each other's strength and weakness in-game as well as in the personality. And yeah, it just feels good. And I like all of my 4 teammates a lot.
With DreamHack Valencia around the corner, other teams have shored up their rosters. Fnatic probably looks to be the best chance for a new team to come in and contend with Team Dignitas and My Insanity after picking up Wubby. They did struggle a bit in the qualifiers, but as My Insanity have proven time and again, online results don't necessarily translate into offline success. But for me, the giants at the top are still Team Dignitas and My Insanity. What do you think, Dread?
Well, one thing we need to consider in the most recent online qualifier for Europe, some of the possible rising stars of the European scene managed to take out some really big names. But this isn't the first time that's happened in Europe, and it's something that we kind of see in their past. I think the most important thing to take out of this is whether or not these online results are finally going to transfer over to the LAN environment and possibly shake up the European scene.
Well, historically, Europe does have a large skill gap between the top few teams and the rest. I guess we'll see if that has changed come Valencia.
BlizzCon's been my goal since this team formed. By that time, we'll have the experience as well as the synergy a lot of these top S-tier teams have.
我们会为了 BlizzCon 做准备，那我们回去的话，可能会先体验一下新版本的天梯系统。
The goal is for sure to qualify for BlizzCon. It won't be easy, but I think we have a pretty good shot, especially if we keep practicing like we do right now.
But as Gilly brought up with the large skill gap, Europe is not the only region that suffers from this problem. China does as well. With EDG disbanding and rumors of many roster swaps within the region, it's going to be interesting to see where they head, especially when you consider that at DreamHack Summer, neither of the Chinese teams performed nearly as well as many people thought they would.
In his winner's interview, eStar's Xiao Ti said that he and Naicha are potentially retiring. And after Edward Gaming disbanded, a release came out saying that eStar was picking up SR and M from that roster, likely to replace those two. But when the team couldn't play with Xiao Ti at the Spring Global Championship, their results suffered. Will that be the same for them with him retiring?
I think one thing we have to consider is that because Xiao Ti has been so open about his retirement and that those roster swaps happened a very long time ago, that it's possible eStar was practicing with their new roster with high hopes for the future, possibly explaining their poor performance at DreamHack Summer.
China's second place team is also going through roster swaps. X Team has picked up Xianzhen, also formerly of Edward Gaming, as well as the Star Dreams GD. They'll be replacing Misaka and Yao Yao for the next Gold League.
But at the Summer Global Championship, neither of the Chinese teams particularly were too impressive even against lower skilled teams. It seems like since spring as a whole, the region is actually weakened. Gilly, do you think they're going to be able to bounce back?
I really don't know. I hope so, but they have gone through a lot of roster swaps, and historically that's not always been the best for a scene. Also, Edward Gaming is like one big question mark for me. Does their disbanding strengthen other teams because they can pick up better players, or is it really just one less good partner to practice against? And how will eStar really fare without Xiao Ti, especially on the global level when the pressure starts to mount? Those are the questions I have for China as we head into fall.
We are not willing to be satisfied until we reach that #1 mark. We're so hungry to play, to practice, to improve.
상대팀이랑 이제 가을에 많이 연습하고 그럴 건데 내년에는 할지 안 할지 모르겠어요. Going to the global stage is probably the biggest improvement you can have as a team. You get to play all the regions, you get to see what their meta looks like, how they draft, and also how they play, like their movement, their shot calling, all that you can learn in the games you have.
Let's move on to North America, where we are winding down the biggest roster apocalypse to hit the region yet. Dread, no team walked away unscathed.
For the top two teams, Naventic and Galeforce, they both removed one player from their roster. Galeforce managed to pick up a new Warrior player, B-Kid, and for Naventic, they picked up Tomster to fill out the rest of their roster. And as members of both these teams will tell you, they are very focused to become the best team in the world.
Being number one in NA is not the goal. Like, that is not it. Like, we're here to be number one in the world.
I think our team is going to definitely perform much better at BlizzCon. I would highly expect a top 4 finish.
Since qualifiers for the first regional are starting, things are finally settling down in North America. And with Crescendo forming with 2 ex-members of Cloud9, 2 from Team Name Change, and Glaurung from Brainpower, the question not only becomes how this team will measure up to Galeforce and Naventic, but what all those other players from the other teams will do with incomplete rosters so close to qualifiers. Man, roster swaps are a hot button issue. What are your thoughts on how they went down?
Europe, before the Spring Global Championship, had massive roster changes, and they had their worst performance at the world stage yet. North America, before the Summer Global Championship, had massive roster changes, and they had their worst performance at the world stage yet. Already with so many changes here in fall, I am only fearful for our region, but hopefully my fears are proven wrong.
But North America is the weakest of all 4 big regions, so something needs to change if we want to seriously compete at BlizzCon. Shots fired?
We're really looking to win BlizzCon and get as good as we can.
지금보다 더 확실히 업그레이드 해야 되고 이제.
Being the best in Europe would be really good. Being the best of the world is something we all dream of.
Finally, let's talk about the rest of the Heroes world. One very pleasant surprise was Please Buff Arthas, who was the first team out of the smaller regions in Heroes history to place top 8 in the world.
With maybe the exception of Renovatio 1, all 4 of these teams dominated their regions in summer, which are Taiwan, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Australia and New Zealand. So we fully expect them to stick together and once again dominate at their regionals. It's just a question of whether or not they can improve enough to compete with the big regions at BlizzCon.
And there you have it. There are many things to be looking forward to when it comes to the fall circuit of the Heroes Global Championship. But that's going to be it for us here at Beyond the Nexus.
Tune in next week for more Heroes esports action. Until then,
We'll see you in the Nexus.